All right, former Eskom Group CEO Brian Molefe is expected to continue testifying at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Yesterday, the commission heard how Glencore stopped supplying coal to Eskom's Hendrina power plant. SABC news reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa has been following the story quite closely. She joins us via Zoom to look at Molefe's testimony and what we can expect from him today. Mbalenhle, thank you very much indeed for your time. So let's just talk about board resolutions and Brian Molefe's understanding with regards to that. What can you tell us?
Yes, indeed, Blaine. That was quite important during yesterday's proceedings. We heard Brian Molefe answering questions relating to that board resolution, which gave him a mandate to go and speak to Glencore. At the time, Glencore had hit financial difficulties and was experiencing financial difficulties and had gone to Eskom seeking to renegotiate a coal supply contract. And it was then the board mandated Brian Molefe, who was the CEO at the time, to then go and get as much information on what Glencore was seeking to do and how they wanted to go about renegotiating that contract that was existing there. However, we heard Brian Molefe telling the commission that, it was illegal of Glencore to even come and try and renegotiate an existing contract that had not lapsed at the time. And he said that, he had no business trying to protect Glencore's interest, but he had to protect Eskom's interests instead. And he essentially spoke about the fact that, he was essentially, because he was supposed to go in and get information from Glencore, he was also supposed to come back to the board and inform the board as to what has happened. But it seems as though it is alleged that Brian Molefe terminated those negotiations prematurely to pave the way. These are all allegations, of course. This was the allegation is such that those negotiations were terminated to pave the way for Gupta-owned Tegeta to buy the mine and also take over that contract and supplying that contract. He is essentially accused of being instrumental with regards to forcing out big mining companies and replacing them with Gupta-owned companies. We also heard that the same thing happened with Exxaro, where Exxaro's contract with Eskom had lapsed. It was finished, it was completed, and it was time for them to renegotiate a new contract. And we heard Brian Molefe saying that these mining companies came in with the sense of entitlement, believing that they were entitled to an extension of a contract, a coal supply contract, and he essentially said he couldn't do that. But what the point of contention here is the fact that once these contracts or these mining giants can no longer fulfill their obligation to Eskom, we see the Gupta-owned companies coming in and taking up that space, which is what has given rise to the allegations that Brian Molefe was instrumental with regards to protecting and working at the behest of the Gupta family. We know from previous witnesses who have appeared, whose identity has been concealed by the commission, that he has been spotted at the residence of the Gupta home in Saxonwold, and it is alleged that he would walk out with a tog bag potentially, allegedly filled with cash. And we know that one of his bodyguards, driver, found cash in the bag during a meeting that happened at Transnet, and essentially alerted Brian Molefe of the risk carrying hard cash, and so much cash brought to both himself and the driver.
Mbali, just for context purposes, remind the viewers what happened to Glencore following that development.
Okay, so what essentially happened after those negotiations between Eskom and Glencore were terminated, Glencore went into business rescue, and obviously this was because they had suffered hard times given to a fall in the commodity prices and so on. And after that, they went into negotiations with
Do we still have Mbali?
To then procure, sell off the resource.
Yes, Karen, so we just lost you a bit there. Just repeat your last line.
We then I see. So we understand that Glencore did go under a business rescue and went into negotiations with Tegeta in order to sell off the Optimum mine. But we heard Brian Molefe testifying before the commission that Glencore had not done proper due diligence when they did take over when they did procure or buy the Optimum mine, and therefore expected Eskom to then save it and help correct that anomaly that happened many years before. But essentially, we see Tegeta taking over the mine, and we also see Eskom being instrumental in Tegeta procuring that particular mine. We understand that there was a prepayment of 1.6 billion rand that was made to Tegeta, and these were the funds which were used to rather secure the mine, buying the mine. And we understand that 1.6 billion rand was later turned into a guarantee. And we also see another another prepayment amounting to around 625 million rand, which was also used to secure the mine. So it seems as though the funds to buy Optimum mine came from Eskom itself. And this is quite interesting, given the fact that we have a CEO who says that he acted in the best interest of the power utility, and yet we see the very same power utility helping a private entity like Tegeta, owned by the Gupta family, essentially assisting them to buy a private mine where the Eskom does not even stand to benefit in any way possible and by any means possible, and essentially again giving them a contract to procure coal from them. So it's very interesting. At this stage, the commission is just trying to establish what role each of the individuals played with regards to making these decisions. So we've seen Matjela Koko coming in and also answering questions regarding to this prepayment. We've seen an email exchange. We've seen the commission talk about an email exchange between Koko, an alleged email exchange between Koko and an email that was linked to Salim Essa, who is a Gupta business associate. And we're also just trying to find out from Brian Molefe, who is the former Eskom CEO, what role he had to play in the decision to then grant that 1.6 billion rand prepayment, which was later converted into a bank guarantee.
Yeah, very, very important context indeed there, Mbalenhle. With regards to Mr. Molefe's testimony today, is he likely to wrap up? I also see that the former Chief Financial Officer, Anoj Singh, is likely to give evidence as well. What can we expect?
Yes, indeed. We could see, it's very difficult to determine if a witness is going to complete their evidence right away. We know that some witnesses come in and are expected to only testify for literally a day, and they end up testifying for more than that, and essentially we are going to have to wait and see what happens with today and how far they get with the testimony that is expected to be heard today. Essentially, after that, we are expecting to hear testimony from former Eskom Chief Financial Officer Anoj Singh, who will also be answering questions regarding this prepayment that was made to Tegeta, as well as other decisions that were taken by Eskom, which seem to have benefited Gupta-owned businesses as well as the Gupta-owned Gupta family in general.
Yeah. 10 o'clock is the time. We will no doubt bring Mr. Molefe's testimony live to you. Mbalenhle Mthethwa, as always, appreciate the reporting. All right, let's take